everybody. Welcome back to the PetaPixel Podcast. We took a week off. Chris and I went on vacation together. We're here. We're refreshed. We're reinvigorated. And we're ready to just dump information into all of your brains. But more than that, this is a very special episode. We've got the cinematographer, the producer, the director on Severance. Jessica Lee Gagne will be joining us later. How did we pull this off? Just like three goofballs, and we're talking to like very culturally relevant people. This is amazing. But who are we goofballs? I forgot that part.
Who are you?
Oh, I'm Jordan Drake.
Oh, right.
I think I said that, but I didn't introduce the other two of you because I'm reinvigorated, but bad at my job.
Oh, okay. I'm Chris Nichols. I don't identify as a goofball.
But you fundamentally are.
You think so?
Do I need to bring up the barbecue sauce episode? That was some serious goofball.
Yeah. I'm Jaron Schneider. I attempt to keep that goofball on track and fail usually.
Just because I use humor as an emotional shield to protect me from the slings and arrows of emotional abuse and deep childhood trauma doesn't mean I'm a goofball.
You are fundamentally a goofy person, and if I were to describe you as a shape, it would be a ball. So,
wow.
Yep, I'm fat. I don't know how to take any of this.
Okay. Hey guys, I like to always kick things off with a question to get us all to know our audience to know us a little better. God damn, I can't talk today. So we're talking to someone working on Severance, one of the biggest TV shows in the world right now. But I want to know, what was the first great TV show you experienced where you were like, oh man, is TV getting good?
Oh, but like how far back are we going? Like childhood?
We can go as far back as you want. I'm going back to childhood, baby.
Well, start us off, Jordan.
And just as a disclaimer, every kids show from the 90s that you thought was good was actually bad. So let's remove that from the conversation immediately.
That still means
I remember when I was like young, early 90s, sneaking upstairs, and my parents were watching ER. And let me tell you, that show, I remember just very much like, oh, this is what grown-up television is. There's gore, there's intensity, there's steady cam shots. And then quite recently, in preparation for The Pit, I will be diving into The Pit shortly, my wife and I actually were like, was ER good? And we went back, and ER slaps. So I'm going to say the first good TV show I ever saw, original ER, Clooney, just hot as all get out, totally watchable.
Jeez. Jaron, what about you?
I'll go while you think. I will die on this hill, but like the first 3 or 4 seasons, it may even be 5 or 6. I can't remember when it cuts off. Of the original run of CSI Las Vegas is incredibly good.
It is good.
Very good.
Is that like, original CSI?
The original
was that
CSI.
A spinoff? Okay.
It's just it was called CSI Crime Scene Investigation, and it was in Las Vegas. It is outstanding television. They don't make TV like that anymore. Like they don't make ER like they don't make that anymore. But I think for people who probably realize like, wow, TV can be good, it was probably Game of Thrones. The original first few seasons of Game of Thrones. I think a lot of people were like, oh man, this is basically a movie every week. And I think that is essentially when you say good TV, I think that's what a lot of people will look to as good TV. It didn't end well, but at least it started strong. Same thing with CSI Las Vegas. Boy, I actually rewatched all of it recently, and boy, is it terrible near the end. It is god awful. But like the beginning, when it was really, like when it's peaking with Gil Grissom as the main character, like holy hell, that show is good.
Do you think the Forgetting Sarah Marshall scenes where they're making fun of CSI just killed that show? Like they nailed it dead to rights so hard that maybe people were like, I can't take CSI seriously anymore thanks to that wonderful Forgetting Sarah Marshall.
Yeah, like the enhance of like making pixels where there aren't pixels. They don't do that originally. In the original runs, they're using film.
I like the extensive use of tobacco filters to make the sky just like orange. I love it. But you know, if I'm thinking about, so you guys are talking about like good quality TV shows, but I'm old. So if I go back to the show, you said the first. So the first show that probably had a big impact that way would probably be like Star Trek: The Next Generation. You know what I mean? Like that's how old I am.
To give that a pass.
Star Trek Voyager? Oh, amazing.
Well, yeah, but I mean, TNG was really like, and it was
that was a big
cheesy
show.
and whatever, but it was a big deal because I grew up as a kid watching the old stuff. And so when that came out, it was like, ooh, really exciting. I want to watch it. And it was fun and it was silly and it ran for a long time and it was great. So I would say that would probably be it for me. Good old TNG.
That's a good
Acceptable
choice,
response.
It's
well
like,
done.
but you think about, like, I think about my kids growing up now, they're like 16, 17, 20. They did get to grow up with things like, not that they would watch it given their age, but like they grew up in an age, I would argue, of like, this is the golden age of really high-end TV, like shows like Mad Men and Game of Thrones and stuff where you're like, wow, like the production value is so high. Whereas for us back in the day, TV production value wasn't supposed to be high, right? I mean, I would argue TNG actually had really, honestly, Sopranos. Yeah.
You know what? I still need to watch that, and I apologize. I haven't seen it.
But Jaron.
I'm currently rewatching all of The Mentalist, and it's just entertaining television. It's easy to watch. It's not good, like not well shot, but character development is good, and it's very slow with its pacing, and I think that's something that a lot of television doesn't do anymore. They just don't have the time.
You know what else? It turns out good.
What?
I'm sorry, but all three of us are wrong.
Severance on Apple TV Plus, and it is bananas that we have the cinematographer on the show later.
Yeah. But before we get to that, Jordan, we have 2 weeks worth of stuff to go through because the last time we were all together, we were sitting in the floor of NAB, and so much has happened since then that we need to cover. So we should probably get on that now.
The best show is actually Buffy the Vampire Slayer. We all know it.
Hey guys, this episode is actually brought to you by a product that was announced this morning at the time of recording. You know those Insta360 cameras? Have you heard of those, Chris?
I've heard of the Insta 90, the Insta 180. I've never heard of an Insta 360, Jordan.
Okay, we have heard of the Insta 360.
He's being the goofball.
Well, what a silly question to ask me.
We've used the X4, but guess what? There's a brand new flagship that has just come out, the Insta360 X5. So this is a full 360 camera. So, Insta360 also do like action cameras and stuff, but this is kind of their like classic. If you're looking for 360 where you can keyframe it, look at different parts of the frame at different times, edit it all in post, this is that series. But it is a substantial upgrade over the X4. And the big thing there, the X4 introduced 8K recording to the camera, but they've bumped the sensor size on it. So previously it was like, yeah, it can shoot 8K, but you need really good light to take full advantage of it. Now, when the light gets a little dimmer, gets a little more contrasty, you're still going to get that higher resolution on the new camera. As well, they're doing a bunch of new processing to improve the low light performance. And I think that was kind of the Achilles heel with a lot of 360 cameras in the past. So they're taking like major steps to address that. And we all know if you've got a bigger sensor, it's going to do better in those high contrast situations. So now you can also do HDR recording up to 60 frames per second. And you bring that stuff into software, you just click like, hey, I want Dolby Vision exports of this. Click, boom, you're getting like beautiful HDR video that'll play nicely on your high-end HDR displays, which is pretty cool. The other thing that's kind of nice is when you're working with 360 video, it's mandatory post-production workflow, essentially, right? So you got to go choose afterwards if you're going to share it with people, like, hey, where do we want the camera looking at a given moment? So with the new X5, they've introduced their Insta-Frame mode, where you're recording spherical video, it's saving spherical video, but it's also taking a look at the footage and trying to create an interesting flat version simultaneously. So you open up the card, you've got a flat 2D version, you can just slap it right on social media, away you go, but then still that 360 version for doing some editing afterwards, which I think is just going to be, this is a fun camera. It just makes it easier to quickly shoot something, share it, but still have the flexibility of 360 when you get back to it. You guys ever scratched an action camera lens or a 360 camera lens before?
No, but I imagine it's easy.
I've done it multiple times.
What,
So
you?
it's really me,
No
yeah,
way.
the guy who's the easiest on all equipment. And this is really the kind of gear that is always just like, I'll just quickly throw it in my bag. And it's easy to get stuff scratched that way. So now they've got replaceable lenses. There's a kit, so you yourself can actually swap them out. And before
That's
you could
nice.
replace the covers yourself. So I would always have a cover on to keep it from getting scratched. But now if you do actually damage the lens, that is user replaceable on it. They've added the clearer audio that I was saying is excellent when we did our action camera roundup. They had a very good wind filter built onto it. So if you want to move quickly and not worry about like endless wind noise, this does help quite a bit. And it's super rugged. It's waterproof down to 15 meters or something in American, some number of feet. That's like 50 feet-ish. Who knows? But yeah, 15 meters underwater in metric.
Nice.
So this has just been launched. And what we're going to do is we're not going to review it because they have sponsored this episode, but I will be bringing it out on some upcoming shoots and trying to come up with creative ways to use it that I will be talking about.
I can
a little
finally
bit in the future.
put a 360 camera in a saltwater crocodile's mouth and not worry about the ramifications.
I mean, it's user replace. You have to get it out of the crocodile afterwards.
Maybe
which
gear ramifications.
might be outside of the.
Slight correction to what Jordan said. We are reviewing it, but Chris and Jordan aren't reviewing it. It is currently being reviewed by someone else on PetaPixel's team. So we will have something for some opinions on that in the coming weeks, but Jordan is going to just use it to see how creative he can be with what it is capable of doing.
I'm going to have some fun. So if this sounds interesting to you, you know what's really handy when you've got these cameras is a selfie stick, because they have this wonderful tool where it just like erases the stick from your hands. It's magic. It is magic. Factually, they've found it. Magic exists. It is this mode. And you know what? You're going to want one of those selfie sticks. So what if I were to tell you, if you use offer code PetaPixel, you could get a 1 meter stick? No, even longer. A 1.14 meter selfie stick for free using that very offer code. When you pick up an Insta360 X5, there's a link in the description. Use that coupon code and a whole more than meter of flexibility will be available to you. That's wider than my arm span.
For those of you who are going to use it, make sure you pay attention to the capitalization of that code. It does matter. So check that out in the description below.
A true magic wand if I've ever heard of one. That is incredible.
Factual
Who doesn't need an extra 0.14 meters, right?
Well, for what it's worth, that actually qualifies as some news because that was announced. So it's like that happened. Very nice.
There you go.
So that was news item number 1. In addition to,
and that's a happy story.
Yeah, thank you Insta360 for sponsoring this episode of the PetaPixel Podcast, because there's a lot in here, as Chris is saying, that is not necessarily all that happy. We have a mixture of things.
Week 2.
I'm trying to sprinkle some stuff around, so there's some happy news mixed in here. But we'll start with one that is disappointing. I wouldn't say it's sad. Synology announced that starting with its 25 plus series products, you cannot use your own drives unless they have been verified by Synology and get all of the features that come with Synology NAS devices. There are some non-Synology branded ones. The thing is, when Synology brands their hard drives, they're just taking a hard drive manufactured by someone like Seagate and then quote unquote verifying them and then selling them under the Synology name. This obviously doesn't make people feel great, because the idea behind arrays like this is that you can replace the hard drives or SSDs on the inside with whatever you like. But they're saying now, no, you shouldn't do that unless you're using our drives. Yeah.
So you can use other brand drives, but then you lose a lot of the capabilities that come with it, like the health updates on the drives. Are they still working properly? All that kind of stuff. They're going to basically limit it in a big way if you do go to those older drives. So that's is unfortunate.
Yeah, it stinks. Yeah. Don't love to see a company. I mean, here's the rationale behind it is that they want to be able to confirm that it'll function for a certain amount of things. And so by verifying it, like when you look at it like a company statement like this and you step back and be like, okay, that's a decent statement to make. It just doesn't feel good to be told that you can't use your existing drives.
Well, that's
No
the
hard
whole
drive
appeal
health
to a
reports.
system like this is to just skim through Amazon and see what's cheap storage that's somewhat reputable this week and buy it and slap it in. So now we're back into essentially a slightly proprietary system if you want to take full advantage of it. And it's going to wind up costing you more money at the end of the day. And that is a theme this week.
Luckily, there are lots of other brands out there for NAS drives, right? But this is just something that's not.
QNAP's another one. QNAP makes decent NAS. And then, another brand that's getting into it, we haven't tested them yet, but we will, is Ugreen.
Actually,
we saw those at NAB.
Yeah, Ugreen makes some nice, nice.
They
drives.
look nice. I haven't tested them yet, but I'm that's the intention is to do that. I like their batteries and the build quality is good. So, all right, moving on. Let's do something that is a neutral to good feeling story.
This is a good story.
Okay,
this is
Light Lens Lab is remaking the rare. How do you say this? Angenieux Type S21 50mm f1.5.
We should ask our future guest.
It's Angenieux.
So, Chris, why is this good news?
Well, so for those that might not know, Light Lens Lab, they have a very cool sort of passion and direction to their company, in that they want to remake classic legendary lenses. So lenses that are famed for maybe their character or their bright aperture design, or just well-loved lens designs. And we played with some of theirs, some of the lenses they've remade, classic Leica formulas and stuff. And make no mistake, like, these are not cheap lenses. They are expensive, but compared to the originals, they are a bargain. And it gives you the ability to experience the look and character of those lenses. And the ones we've tested are gorgeous. I mean, they really do give you something unique. So we had a viewer actually ask a question way back, quite a few podcasts back, and they're saying, well, what lenses do you guys like for character? And my answer was Angenieux. Angenieux makes some beautiful cinema lenses, some classic photographic lenses, and they have really interesting characters. So this makes a lot of sense. This is a lens like designed back in the 50s, 1953, M42 screw mount, and just interesting sort of character and bokeh. And the Light Lens Lab, I mean, they're not going to call it an Angenieux. I mean, but it looks like it as far as the machine work. They're mimicking everything, the silk screening. Yeah, font. It's gorgeous. So I'm very excited to play with it.
One thing that's really cool with Light Lens Lab is they actually put their money where their mouth is, and they show you like, hey, we rented that lens, we shot it side by side with ours, look how close they are. And the stuff about the lens that's interesting, like the blooming, the look of the bokeh, the fall off, is extremely
Very
similar. So they're accomplishing what they set out to do, which is very cool.
It's just neat that they try to like recreate with modern design. Like the Leica lens that we played with, they actually sourced the exact same glass formula that Leica used in that original lens, right? So like they're going above and beyond. They're not just kind of making it look the same. They're trying to recreate it as close as possible. It's really cool.
The question is, do we get a chance to review this?
Yes.
I sure hope so.
Yes!
I sure hope so.
Light Lens Lab reached out and asked if we would like to have some time with the sample they have in North America, and I have confirmed that we do. We will hopefully see this soon. To go back to what Chris mentioned about this lens being expensive, I expect Light Lens Lab to come in at least half this price. Because the original Angenieux that we've seen on the market before, Blue Moon Camera Machine, which is based here in Portland, Oregon, and I go there all the time. They had one in 2022, and they did a video that shows like what it looks like and how they shot with it. That sold for $7,000, and it wasn't even in the really as great condition. And then in 2021, the year prior, there was one available at the Lights Photographica auction, and that sold for 6,000 euros, which was about $7,200. So like, it's expensive. It's not like a lens rarity $25,000 expensive, but these are not only are they expensive, they're just hard to find. You don't ever see them on the market. These are the last two that I've seen since I looked. So if it's only come up twice in the last half decade or more, that's crazy. So there is a market for this, and hopefully Light Lens Lab managed to maintain the usability and look of this. It looks like they have, despite changing some things like the mount. They did change the mount to M, which is nice.
Yes. Yeah. And Jared should totally buy this because he's looking for a nice 50 mil for his Bessa. So here you go. This is the one. Jared. This is the one.
We'll see. Oh, my battery died. Well, you know what? I'm going to go black for a minute here while I go change out my battery. But before I do that, I will say Fujifilm has priced the new Instax Mini 41. Chris, take it away while I change my battery.
Yeah, so now we're into the sad news. So, Fujifilm has released this new Instax Mini 41 camera, but when it was right when the tariffs were being announced. And so as it was coming out, they actually had to hold it and say, we don't know what the pricing is going to be yet. We have to delay the release. And I have to say, when we went to NAB, one of the biggest topics of conversation, because literally tariffs were coming out and changing while we were on the show floor, right? So one of the biggest conversations everybody's having is, well, what's the price going to be? And manufacturers are like, I honestly don't know what to tell you. Universally, everybody was stumped. And so this is now, we're starting to see the ramifications of this. We're starting to see the things. The Instax Mini 41 is just a small, compact, instant camera. We're going to definitely play with it using the mini format. But it was, like most Fujifilm Instax mini cameras, going to be priced around that $100 mark. And now it is being announced it will unfortunately have to be $129.95. I know that doesn't seem like a big price overall. It's not necessarily, but that is a big increase over the original sticker price, and it is indeed because of the tariffs.
Yeah, I just think this is our first look at what we're going to see. It gives us a ballpark moving forward as to what we could potentially see. It seems like 30 to 40% is kind of what we're
big jumps.
Yeah.
We will revisit that in a little bit in what I'm calling the tariff talk update. But we'll come back to that. But there is another piece of Fujifilm news that dropped today as of recording.
Yes.
And Fujifilm is teasing a new camera promising, quote, half the size, twice the story. So the idea here, some people are saying, is it a half frame or is it just a small camera? We don't know. Details are extremely scarce. It's only a 19-second video, but there's definitely something coming.
Yeah, I mean it's weird from Fujifilm. They've done announcement coming up, but this is the most I can remember them doing a straight up product teaser. Am I wrong on that?
No, it's unusual.
Well, it's unusual, but this camera's getting leaks and stuff like that too. So maybe they're trying to jump on top of it. It kind of looks X100-ish, but smaller dimensions, more of a squish dimension. The video heavily implies that it's going to be a half-frame film camera, much like the Pentax 17, but that Provia logo kind of also could be an LCD display. So then I'm like, well, maybe it's a digital camera, but they're just trying to make something really compact, maybe a smaller sensor or something like that. So very intriguing. I'm sure it will, again, like all Fujifilm products, be in hot demand. But that's a happy story. That's a intriguing, interesting story.
Something's coming.
Well, how about another happy story? Viltrox, you reviewed it. They announced a new 35mm f1.2 lab lens, and you liked it?
Of course, yeah, I liked it. Other than those damn aperture rings, curse them to hell, may they never return. But the Lab series, Viltrox is on a roll. They're making great lenses. They're making great cheap lenses, but the Lab series really represent affordable but professional grade lenses. And the optics are nice. I mean, they're sharp lenses. They're good wide open at 1.2. Bokeh is decent. I mean, there are some compromises that you will have, but their voice coil motors are driving the elements quickly without being, super powerful advanced linear motors, and very versatile lens. And I do like 35mm lenses with these fast wide apertures because you can get an interesting separation from your background. So yeah. Cool.
Jaron,
optic.
can you just clip out the video of Chris saying, I do like 35mm lenses, and just cut out the back half of that statement? And we're just going to plaster it on social media.
No,
that would be great.
He's got Stockholm Syndrome. He's been beaten into submission.
That might be what it is. Or maybe, everything is important with context.
Well,
that missing in today's discourse.
That lens, interestingly, the pricing for it didn't change due to tariffs. as far as I can tell. Like it.
Don't say anything, Jaron. They'll just raise it. Be quiet.
I know it's currently at $9.99. We'll see how long it stays there, but as far as I know, it's not going anywhere. So on that note, I had a happy story that I was going to say here, and then we're going to do tariff talk, but I'm going to save it so that we end on a happy note before going into our interview with Jessica Lee.
Yay.
So let's do a bit of a recap here, because the last time we were on the podcast, we talked about how at NAB, there was this just like shadow of what is going on with pricing here. Basically everywhere, because that entire show relies on things that come into the United States. Like the manufacturing process here doesn't exist, so they needed to be imported. Well, while I was sitting in the airport, ready to go back home,
and we were on the show floor, Jordan.
President Trump paused the quote-unquote reciprocal tariffs, which I want to point out it wasn't reciprocal. He started it, then they answered, then he did this, whatever.
Right.
He paused them for 90 days. So the one that we were talking about there about how they were going to be enormous, coming out of Japan specifically, that isn't currently happening. We'll see. We'll revisit it now in something like June or something like that. But China still got hit with a 125% tariff. So with that as background
raised it
information,
to 125.
Yeah. So with that background information, let's go into the first story on this, which was that Blackmagic Design says that they were planning to open a US-based factory, but then scrapped that plan because the tariffs made it untenable, which seems to me to be the opposite of what the proposed concept was to be.
That was supposed to get all that American manufacturing just like up and slapping. Wasn't that the plan?
Yeah.
Guys, I'm
If they're
Canadian. I don't know.
American-based,
I don't
I guess.
understand. What happened?
Yeah, so the thing is, you can put a factory here, but you still need the supplies to make the things, which have to be imported because those things don't exist here in the United States. I say here for me. You guys don't live in the United States, but
there.
So there you go.
No.
So even if they were going to assemble them here, they would still need to import parts. Those got too expensive. It is no longer viable for them. That is fascinating to me.
Let's also make note that they have raised prices on their products besides this story.
They were the
just
first
again,
ones,
like they've also had to raise pricing on theirs to counteract some of the tariffs. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about some more prices going up. Harman, the parent company behind Ilford Film and Paper, announced that it was going to need to raise its prices because of the import tax that is on 10%. So even though Trump canceled the wide-ranging ones that were different depending on what country you're from and didn't make any sense, these ones, he just said anything coming in is now getting a 10% just across the board. So Ilford now costs basically 10% more. The company that owns them says that they'd like to reduce that once the tariffs are gone, if they ever disappear. But this was just something that they had to do because the consumer now has to bear the burden of the tax.
And the consumer is the one paying for it, for sure. Yeah. So that's just how it works.
The first news of this came out of a film lab based in Texas. But I also called Blue Moon Camera and Machine, second time I mentioned them in this podcast, just to confirm. And they said, yes, that they were aware this was happening. However, they placed orders well ahead so that those have already been shipped, and they don't believe that those will be affected by this price increase. So they are having enough to make it to about midsummer, they think, before the price will go up. But that is going to vary depending on where you buy your film.
But analog film's already super affordable, right? Really easy to buy for everybody. Oh, it's 10%. We can eat that. Oh, no.
It was not.
There's going to be less LED lights behind Jaron as he sells them to fuel his film obsession.
Yes.
And as the prices
Jaron
rise
his
and rise.
Gundams are up for sale, everybody.
It's just going to be a white
deal.
wall behind you in 6 months.
He has a Provia addiction. He has a Provia
we'll talk about
addiction.
that later. The other story in here, this came out yesterday. DHL has suspended any shipments into the United States, taking on any more of them, where the value of that shipment is worth more than $800, citing a new customs rule. So in addition to all these tariffs, there is a new customs rule that previously the threshold was a $2,500 value. That got cut by $1,700 down to $800. So if it is more than $800, it requires what is known as formal entry processing. This is additional paperwork that may not have been filled out when the product was originally shipped. So now there's a huge backlog that DHL has to deal with. So rather than continuing to stack up, they have decided that they're going to pause until they catch up. So it may take a while for you to get your DHL shipment, and they can't give you an exact date at this point.
Man,
Fun.
and DHL does, like, for context, DHL does a lot of shipments from Asia, a lot of shipments from Europe, and as well. Like, it's a huge company for that. So yeah, this is going to be crazy.
I got a statement from DHL that says DHL Express is working diligently to scale up clearance capacity. However, due to the short-term nature of this substantial change in U.S. customs regulations, shipments over $800, regardless of origin, may experience multi-day delays. To maintain the high-quality service commitment of DHL Express to its customers, they have paused until further notice. Will temporarily suspend B2C shipments to private individuals in the U.S. whose declared value exceeds $800. Lame. How about some more good news, guys? I got two more.
Awesome.
Last week,
I'm in a really good mood.
we'll fix it soon, I promise. Last week, for what it's worth, anyone listening, I don't like talking about this, and you can feel free to skip these sections if you want, if you'd prefer not to hear bad news. But it's important to talk about how this affects the photography industry. It's really important to talk about it.
News.
Yeah. So, like, it affects you. I'm sorry it stinks, but, well, there are people who are trying to make it work. Namely, Japan last week sent its chief trade negotiator to Washington to speak with U.S. leadership regarding a trade deal. They went home on Friday. No deal was met. According to two sources, the reason why is that the Japanese don't know what the U.S. is asking for. So here's a quote from his name is Ambassador Chas Freeman. He's a now retired diplomat and was the Assistant Secretary of Defense for the International Security Affairs from 1993 to 1994. He says, the Japanese have just been to Washington. Their experience, apparently, was that they went to talk to the American leadership on this matter, and the American leadership said, what are you offering? And the Japanese said, well, what is it that you want? And the Americans could not explain what they wanted. So they left with nothing, no deal, because they don't know what the U.S. wants. I don't know what the U.S. wants. I don't know what to tell you guys. And there's probably no comment here. It's just like exasperation mainly.
Yeah, I'm just going to look sad at my camera.
Last thing here.
There is some talk, there is some talk of, I mean, right now Japan's under a 10% tariff. There's some talk of them raising that. So that's kind of a thing, right? I mean, there was a threat of a 24% tariff. We don't know if that's happening yet. It's been paused, but I mean, that's the concern here now, right?
On that note, Chris, in 2019, during Trump's first term, he came to an agreement with then Prime Minister Abe in Japan,
right,
to cap duties on cars. That at the time he was essentially saying, like, I have received confirmation from the U.S. that they won't raise tariffs again. Well, he did, because he put a 25% tariff on all automotive imports, which affected Japan. So now, according to Japan, they're like, you told us you weren't going to do that. You did it. So they're having a hard time figuring out the consistency of messaging from the same leadership teams. So they don't know what to do. And they seem kind of flummoxed by all this. Final story is one that directly relates. So you may have noticed that there have been
final sad story, Jaron. Is that what we're
final sad story?
Okay. Okay.
You may have noticed that on B&H you can't place orders for some things that you feel like you should be able to at least put a pre-order in for. This is like some Sony products, like the Sony 100 to 400, I believe, is one of them. Sorry, the 400 to 800. 63 to 8 GOSS is on the website, but you can't place a pre-order. You also can't do it for the Fujifilm GFX 100 RF, the XM5 in black, and any X106 cameras. I saw lots of speculation on this, but I actually got a confirmed statement from both sides here. B&H says that they decided to not accept pre-orders until they know when inventory will be available to ship. Yeah. Fujifilm, I reached out to Fujifilm and Sony. Sony declined to comment, but Fujifilm said this. In the US market, we have temporarily suspended orders for some digital camera products in order to assess various changes, including tariffs and their impact on cost increasing factors. As a result, we are currently not accepting new pre-orders for the X106, GFX 100 RF, and XM5 Black models. So they just basically said we can't even start to ship these to the US until we have information. So that's an exact... That is the one thing that is directly affecting photography right now.
Might be worth taking a look at some of the Canadian retailers. Who knows what you'll find?
There's some good ones up here. Ooh, my wife works for one. Wait, doesn't Chris's wife
maybe,
also work for one?
Yes, maybe the camerastore.com might be a good one to check out. Who knows? Might take a look there, see what they got.
Well, that was depressing.
And then fly up to Canada, you see our beautiful country, buy a camera, and then when customs like, well, did you buy a camera? They're like, with this old thing? No,
this
I've
old
had this
GFX
for 10
100
years.
RF?
Yeah, rub it in the dirt, put some scratches in it, be like, I've had this forever.
Are you suggesting fraud?
No.
Okay.
No.
Just making sure.
No.
Well,
hey, if you buy a souvenir, it's just as a good memory. That's totally happy stories now.
I'm not going to
stories
narc on you.
now. And again, just to say, like, we're not trying to make this political because we're not. But it is important to understand that this is affecting everybody across the board in this industry. Like, it's not a political thing that we're trying to make it. It's just facts that we all are going to have to deal with the ramifications of. I love the word ramification, by the way. I love that word.
Before we get into our talk with Jessica Lee, let's cleanse our palate here.
Story.
Last year, on this very podcast, we talked about how Nikon and Bandai Namco had partnered to release a new series of mini versions of some of their cameras. The Nikon F, the ZFC, the SP, and the Z9.
They're adorable.
We wanted to go get them when we went to Japan to see Nikon last fall. And then I think we just either forgot or ran out of time. Probably the latter.
No, they weren't available because we asked.
Well,
we're like,
in February.
60%
they
of
weren't
the
ready
reason
yet.
that we're here is we want these things.
Right. But when we went back in February for CP Plus, they would have been available. But I completely forgot.
That's true.
And we didn't have a bunch of time. So whatever. Sad. I was reminded, though, when I went to Uwajimaya, which is a grocery store, a Japanese grocery store here in the Pacific Northwest. There's one in Beaverton, Oregon, where I go regularly, and then there's also one in Seattle. They recently cleared out a giant chunk of their homewares and replaced it with gacha machines. And in there, I found one. I found a Nikon thing, so I went and put they don't use coins. You have to go to a token machine, an exchanger.
Get a vendor, yeah.
Yeah, it cost me $8, which I feel like
How many pulls is that?
One pull.
It adds
one
up.
pull. Yeah, they're more expensive here for sure. I think it would have been. I think it's like 400 yen in Japan. It was $8 here, but my first pull was an F, and I got it.
Nice.
So
look at that.
I
love the
mini
comparison.
F. It's next to my Maxi F there. It's not the exact same lens, but I put my 50 mil on there. And these are really cool. So the reason I'm bringing this up is that Bandai Namco has been expanding its gashapon machines all across North America. And there's a website that I linked to in this story, which you can find a link below the like button, that will show you where the nearest one to you is. And you can go check. There's no guarantee that you'll find this gacha machine there, but you can keep going back.
Right.
Someone messaged me on Threads this week and said that this particular machine in my location isn't there anymore. They're rotating them out. This place is super popular. So they will come in and out, but these are here now in North America in some capacity. So if you want them, you can go find them.
How did you not keep pulling until you got the SP?
That's what
Jared?
I was
What's
curious
wrong
about.
with you?
You feel like a completionist to me. I thought you would keep chucking bucks until you had all four.
I don't own an SP yet, so that's probably why I didn't feel that attached to doing that. Also, as I need to reiterate, it was $8 for a pull.
Sell one roll of Provia, Jared, and get like 17 pulls.
One roll of Provia is like $35. So
there you go. That's you're good, man. 4 pulls, dude.
Anyway, that's the news.
All
Jordan,
right.
would you like to lead us into what we're going to talk with next?
I do. This is awesome. Let's go. Okay, how cool is this? We have on the podcast the cinematographer, director, producer of Severance, one of the biggest shows in the world right now on Apple TV that everybody's been losing their minds over for 10 weeks back to back in a row, is on our podcast to talk to us. How weird is that? This is Jessica Lee Gagne. Thank you for joining us. I'm baffled, but this is a huge honor.
Well, the honor is all mine. I'm glad to be here today.
So we really want to talk about kind of the technical aspects of this. Like our show is largely about photography, video, that kind of stuff. So we do want to touch on that, but also just some of the creative decisions that you've made. And I just want to give a little context for our audience. Like your role on the show has evolved quite a bit since the pilot, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
It's evolved, progressed. It's been transformational. It's been a bunch of things.
So you started as the cinematographer on it and kind of set the style guide for the show, correct?
Yes.
So when people think about Severance, it is a very, like, I just want to say, I find a lot of, like, now with everybody producing a streaming show, there's so much out there. And a lot of it does feel kind of rushed and not deliberate. And I think that's a big part of what makes Severance stands out, is you can feel a conscious decision being made, you know, in the acting choices and everything, but also like the aesthetics of the show, which you kind of set the template for, right?
Yeah, I mean, we really craft on Severance. That's kind of how I like to call it. And that's every single department. Everyone pushes the limit, and we do get time to work properly, which is what, you know, makes the show what it is. And that's not, you know, not everyone gets that luxury. Like it is in today's world, not obvious to like work on those shows.
Yeah, it's funny. So many people are like, what makes a shot cinematic? It's something that we see all the time on YouTube, like, oh, cinematic lenses, cinematic shots. I think a lot of the time it's like the most cinematic thing is time.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it can be, but then also it's in essence, I think that's the core of that will come from the director and the cinematographer combination, because you can also do it with very simple photography. You know, I think like Honora is an interesting example of something like that, where it's
right.
shot fast and in a small way, but it still has a very cinema feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. So how did you get to this stage in your career? Like I should say, we got 3/4 Canadian in our little boxes here today.
Sorry, Jared.
How did you get started in this?
I mean, the great thing about Canada is that we have a lot of public financing for movies. And I went to Concordia, where I studied film production and photography. I was definitely like the one going around wanting to shoot everyone's projects. And a lot of people wanted me to shoot their projects because I think things I was doing was looking good for film school. You know, when you're in film school and there's like that one student who like their work kind of stands out, a lot of directors will gravitate towards them. So I was lucky to get to have a lot of friends that wanted to work with me. And coming straight out of school, I got to make movies really quickly. And, you know, with this kind of financing, the government's taking chances on people and like helping people getting their career started. So that really propelled me forward. I did some movies that went to different film festivals. I started working a little bit more internationally. And then at one point I kind of came back to Canada and worked on a film called Sweet Virginia with Jamie Dagg, also a Canadian director. And that film ended up in Ben's hands, and when he saw it, he connected with it for Escape at Dannemora. So that kind of pushed me forward. When he saw that and committed to working with me, I think it really kind of set my trajectory for like the next 7 years.
Well, that kind of like rolls into one of the first questions I wanted to ask, because Ben Stiller's actually really interesting in that so many people who like start from a comedic background don't care much about the visual sense when they move on to directing. It's more like they want control of tone and performance. That's not the case with him. So like even starting like Reality Bites and then going to something like, I want to say Apocalypse Now, and I know I just screwed that up.
Tropic Thunder?
Tropic Thunder, thank you.
Same, but different.
I talk about controlling tone. Very different tone there.
I was like, wait, is there a movie I don't know about here?
Yeah, just hidden in his filmography there.
Yeah.
But clearly he has a strong visual sense. So is he coming to you with like specific shots, like lenses even for that? Or is it really like, here's what I'm trying to achieve, and the two of you trying to figure out the actual technical way to get that aesthetic?
Well, I mean, we have now built like a language between us where we almost don't even need to talk. Like we just know, we know each other's tastes, we know what we like and how we work, and it's we know how to get something that we find both interesting. But it all started with kind of I think he had seen Sweet Virginia and connected to something in there. So when I was hired for that, I had to kind of ask myself, well, first of all, why is he hiring me? And I was like, okay, well, I guess I have to like trust the aesthetic that I do. And originally, I shot some really simple tests for Escape before we did like costume, hair, makeup types tests. Like these were just really just me, a camera, and an AC. We went out and we shot visuals. And I'm like, I'm just going to shoot things how I would do it. I'm going to show it to him and see how he responds. That was probably the moment I was the most scared of working with him because I didn't know how he'd react, and he was going to be like, if he was going to say, oh, I made a mistake, let's like change this person. But when he saw the tests, he literally said, these are the most beautiful tests I've ever seen. And I was like, that boosted my confidence, except this one shot, which was a sodium light. And I love sodium lighting, you know, that like sodium vapor orange lighting. Yeah. And he saw that and he's like, we're not doing that. That's not going to fly. I don't like that. Everything else is beautiful except for that. And I was like, oh, okay, noted. So if ever you want to like understand why Dan Amora and also Severance are very cold lighting wise, it's definitely like Ben's taste. So through experiences like that, I got to know him. Sometimes it's him who comes up with a full shot idea. Sometimes I pitch things to him. It's really collaborative. On a show like Severance, and even Escape, you have so many setups, so many shots. You need a lot of variety. So we're just constantly open to things coming from different places. Sometimes, you know, it can even be a production designer idea or something that you see on like a board for a set design thing. And I'm like, wow, that's actually like a great shot. I think that our production designer, Jeremy Hindle, actually does beautiful wides. Sometimes I'll ask him just to like, hey, shoot some Artemis wides for me. And I'm just like researching to see who comes up with the best frame. And we even almost like challenge each other. I think sometimes it's like, who can come up with the best shot? Because some of these scenes have a lot of shots. And we work with a lot of cameras at the same time. Like I love shooting multi-camera work, and sets like MDR let you do that. So sometimes there'll be a hero shot, which might be his, but then we'll have a camera that's not doing anything. And I'll even ask the operator, find something, just find something. And then that shot will become like a huge part of the scene. What's amazing about how Ben works is that he's very open to the creative process and how it moves. Like, and he understands that it's its own beast and it kind of moves through us in a way. So he's not the type of director who will be like, this has to be this way. He observes and then he can kind of like see where he wants to go, which I feel for me has been a big lesson.
Very cool.
And I've tried like in my directing, implementing that kind of strategy. I realized that like, if you want to create on a certain level, you do need to understand that there are like other forces at work, you know, and also like really truly understanding why you're hiring, who you're hiring, and why you have this team around you is to get the best out of them as well.
I kind of want to play off that, Jessica, the question, you know, as a photographer, but also the technical nature of our show. When I watch creative work, TV shows and movies, I always try to avoid the technical and really focus on the characters and the emotional response and stuff that I get from them. And what I definitely noticed about both Severance and Escape from Dan Amora is, you know, they have this kind of idea of being trapped and being stuck in a prison and trying to break out in a way, and people feeling longing and feeling lost and trapped. And so I guess my question is, for you as a creative person, when you're trying to show, because you show beautifully that sense of emotion without even a lot of words on behalf of the people speaking, how do you approach a scene like that? Do you think about things emotionally and then how I want to translate that into the technical when you're shooting? Or is it the opposite? Do you think about like you have recipes that you like to use for certain kinds of ways to make people feel and carry emotions through the actual lens itself?
I don't think I have recipes. I can quickly answer that. In terms of, you know, really showing emotion, I will read. It will never only just be about maybe like one person. I'm trying to think of it. It's different as a director and then as a cinematographer to answer that question. Yeah. So I just want to answer it properly. But I definitely thrive on that as a director now, which is this new phase of my life. But my history as a cinematographer, I think, gives me a secret weapon because because I understand the tools of cinematography and of the cinematic language in that sense very well. Like for me, it's very natural. Like I don't actually intellectualize it. It's just a feeling. And because that language for me is acquired and I speak it as a director, I'm not thinking when I'm talking. You know, it's like when you're learning a language and you have to think about the words and conjugate. Like I don't need to do that as a director. And I'm very grateful for that. Like those 15 years of cinematography are definitely the biggest tool in my like toolkit right now. But as a cinematographer, what's harder for me is I think I hadn't opened the door to directing because I wasn't in touch with certain emotions within myself. And this has nothing to do with the craft of cinematography. I really want to be specific about that because I have the utmost respect for cinematographers. I just think that there were things within me I wasn't able to feel. So I don't think I can answer that question. I think I came at it more intellectually before, but my transition into directing was an emotional one, and it was me understanding emotion kind of for myself. And I think if I had tried to direct early on in my career, it wouldn't have worked. I could have tried, but I think because I would almost like black out, you know, trying to like have those stages. And for me, working has been a way of avoiding my own emotional stuff. Right. You know, I definitely have been lost in it for a long time.
My questions are a little more personal, I guess, not necessarily related to your work on Severance, but I think they must, in my mind, inform it in some way. So I guess I have a question for you. When you're like traveling or doing stuff for your personal life, like, do you take a camera with you? Do you take photos for yourself?
I don't. I travel usually without a camera. I used to be a huge camera buff, like film camera buff. I did a lot of 4x5 photography. I have a Blad, which I gave to someone. But I grew up with a camera in my hands. I was like the school photographer at the youngest, even in primary school. I remember they made me make pictures on this day where there was a planting tree day where like the older students were planting trees with the younger students, and they're like, well, we don't have a tree for you, but you're going to take pictures of everyone. So, like it was almost thrown on me, and I loved it from a very, very young age and started doing film photography really young. And at one point, I think something happened when I started working professionally after Concordia. I started getting further and further away from photography because my life became obsessively. I would obsessively work on things. I was constantly shooting nonstop. Like the body of work that I had accumulated for my age wasn't normal in terms of fiction work. And you know how much time goes into fiction work. Like it's months of prep, months of shooting. Like these shows, the past 4 years of my life have been dedicated to Severance. So when I would go on vacation or when I'm alone, I actually don't take many pictures. You know, sometimes I'll do a little iPhone pic, but it's very rare. And it's just because I think for so many years, I wanted some space. When I travel, I want space from work, and I associate taking pictures to that.
I'm 100% with you. I had the same. I
think we know what you
exactly
are
the
talking
same
about.
Experience. Yeah, I was actually kind of expecting this answer because like I had the exact same thing. So I get it. Chris dragged me kicking and screaming back into taking pictures recently, but before that, it just was not. It was not fun, and it just made me think about work. So
I tried to go back in a couple times, but it's just not happening naturally, and I don't want to force it. Sometimes I like doing a little post for Instagram, but I'm not. I don't. It doesn't. I struggle so much to be in the present moment in my life that I'm trying to like at least those vacations or those off moments to just be present. Yeah. I'm not really the type of person who like pull up my phone when I'm at the restaurant or things like that. I kind of want to not have a phone. Like that's the goal. That's the ultimate goal.
Amazing. Love it.
Very nice.
So I kind of wanted to jump back to Severance quickly because there's just some really interesting aesthetic choices that you've made, especially I think they stand out in the more recent season. And one of those is the use of like robotics essentially for like super controlled camera movement. And I just want to know, is that something when you're looking at like, oh, technically this is the way to achieve it. Is that exciting to you? Or is it just like, this is a necessary evil for us to achieve what we want to do in terms of visual effects or transitions or something like that? Like, before we jumped on here, the audience didn't hear you were like, oh, I'm terrible with technology. And it's like, have you seen the show that can't be? So I want to know, is that something you look forward to as a challenge, or just like, oh man, it's a robotics shot today?
I don't have like a particular emotional connection or desire to shoot with any specific tool. For me, it's about what's the right tool for the job. It took me a little bit of time to get comfortable with these more high-end tools. Like Dan and Mora, I was definitely initiated to things. To be perfectly honest, I didn't even know, because I kind of like taught myself as a cinematographer. I never really, straight out of school, I did it. And I never was on sets where to watch other DPs. I never saw anyone else work. And the filmmakers I was working with, we were doing like 1 million to 2 to 4, maybe 4 million tops, like for budget. So we weren't getting those tools. It wasn't an option. I did Sweet Virginia not even really knowing I don't know if I should say this. I didn't even like know what a Libra head was. And some of those shots in Sweet Virginia, like there's this one that's in the trunk of a car. It's me with a hi-hat panning and with the AC zooming this. And the shot would have been done with a remote head if the DP like knew what they were doing. But like I did all these shots where I would walk 360 degrees. I got the grip to just build me a little platform, and I would just be walking, around the thing, doing these shots. And I don't know, I guess I could just do it. But then on Escape, I was in New York working with this like New York crew and all these like, bigger grip, bigger gaffer, all the things. And I was like, oh, so these are the tools that we use. So there was a big learning curve there. And I just never had that. I never saw those tools as essential, because I knew I could like do those shots just with me and like my walking around a dolly. So I'm not impressed by them. And we do a lot of robotic stuff in the Any world because it makes sense for the feel that it has. It's directly connected to that lumen, world of control and exactness, and just it obviously fits with the Any the Any dialect, I guess I could call it. But the original moment when we decided to go with the remote head style, which is kind of what birthed the aesthetic of the robotics for that, came from COVID. Not that many people know this. I mean, I said it maybe once or twice, but when COVID happened and we hadn't started shooting, we were about to go into production, and then everything stopped. And when we were having the conversations about getting back to work, and everyone is like, well, how do we do this? What are we going to do on set to make it safer? And I told production, well, I think we should have 2 remote heads full time, which is not normal for a television show. And I'm like, well, like this, because we had to talk about pods, and we had to talk about like what happens if someone tests positive. And then I'm like, well, at least this way it takes the operator away and the grip can be further away. And so they said, yeah, they approved that cost. And then it just became our style of shooting. And we, really started implementing more of the feel that those heads have. And that, goes into using the bolt arm and some more techno dolly style shots that we would do after. But that was the birth of it. And it came from just like a necessity.
This kind of jumps right off of that topic, but you sort of answered it. But the Any and Outie world have completely different aesthetics. Is there one where you wake up and you're just like, oh, it's an Outie day today, I love that style? Or like, oh, it's an Any, is there one that you look forward to working on more? Because it's almost like you're working on 2 films simultaneously.
Yeah, they have different things that I really love. So it depends. Like in the Any world, you can really create fun kind of quirky shots and fun transitions. I love transitions. So I'm always like, ooh, okay, how can we like move into this? Like what's interesting? And I can propose things. And Ben and I are always challenging each other, because it's like, how many times have we shot this set, And we're like, what are we doing today? Like we need to, up our game. And I love the multi-camera stuff. So that really works in that set. One thing I remember being very excited about in season 1 is lighting Mark's house. Like that set, I did lighting exercises with the gaffer and the grip, and we would call them, I call them like lighting workouts. But basically, before we went into production, I always have this time, whatever project I do, like in the last maybe like 10 years, I would have a pre-light week or a couple days at least on several sets if possible with them, and we would just do lighting setups. I'd pull up a scene and be like, okay, let's just try and like light this scene. We didn't know where the actors would be, but like for me, I don't light where actors will stand, I just light space. And then we would practice, like we would have I'd have photographed in frames of already of like, okay, scene 5, scene 21, scene 40, like this is the mood and the vibe we're going for them. And I'm obsessed about never doing the same thing, which for me was one of the challenges of doing Severance. I didn't want to do it originally because I didn't want to do office lighting. I sneaked in I pushed production design to put in some light wells for me so I could do something different. But anyways, in Mark's set, that time of like just having the moment to play and do these different lighting looks was really, really fun. It's always challenging when you do a lighting look before shooting because you risk not being able to hit it again. So if like you shoot a test and I've had that happen where the test looks better than the day, and nothing bothers me more than that. When we did the Christmas scene in episode 7, we had pre-lit that, and when we pre-lit it, I was like, oh, it's so beautiful. And I got to do more beam lighting, which is like my favorite type of lighting. And I don't often do it with Ben because he doesn't like warmer lighting, so I avoid it.
Right.
But
well, he's not the director in that episode.
Well, now I think he's like I've slowly like eased him into it. There's some Dylan stuff in his house that we did with Moldies. I think we're both finding kind of like a balance. But when we did that Christmas scene and we were trying to light it the day of, I was really struggling. I was kind of antsy and not fun on set even. I feel like I could have been chiller, but I fought and I took time off of my directing to get the lighting right, which is fun because now I really feel that like as when you DP and direct at the same time, everything you do, is going to affect your directing. So you're so conscious of it. It's an interesting place to be.
Actually, that's perfect segue because a lot of our commenters, they wanted to ask this, hey, 108U, they were asking, now that you've done your directorial debut and you've started directing some of these episodes, but also as a DP, how does that change the dynamic for you creatively? And I was kind of thinking, how does it change it for you specifically when you now have direct control over the cast, right? And you make those decisions about where they are and how they move and what position you want them in. What was that dynamic like and that transition like?
There's not many. I'm trying to, except for the transitions that are extremely technical in this episode in 7.
Amazing.
No, thank you.
They're really good.
Lots of work. Lots of risks as well. But I'm thinking, I don't feel like I'm the type of person who will absolutely like push an actor to be in like a specific position. I've seen Ben work with all of this cast and they really come together to find the best, most real version of whatever they're doing. So, I've got to watch a lot of directors and actors, and I'm kind of like trying to figure out like my style and my way in this, but I do just like lighting where I don't want to like light for where an actor will stand. I don't want to go into a scene saying you need to stand here and you're going to do this. Like at first there's just a conversation about the scene, what's really going on. And if the actors feel that they want to be somewhere, I would rather just let them try it out in rehearsal and see if it works. And if the actors want me to, some people are more, okay, well, where do you want me to be? And then I obviously have an idea in my mind, but I don't want to stunt the possibility. Like I am trying to see it. I've been a control freak my whole life. And me being a DP was a way of controlling my life outcome. Because I was able to, make a living straight out of school as a cinematographer. I think as a director, it's very challenging and it was like very frightening to go those ways. So I avoided it. But as a director, I got work and moved forward in that. And I think this idea of not fully controlling everything is what I'm trying to embrace. So if that answers the question, I like trying to see where it goes.
Did you find that creatively liberating to take on a directorial role? And I guess then the obvious question too then is, do you see yourself doing more of that work in the future?
100%. I'm moving into directing. That's happening. I'm already working on my first feature. It was liberating. It was emotional and beautiful, but I don't think I could have done it on another platform than with Severance. It took everyone around me believing in me more than me.
That's cool.
That I would do it and be vulnerable, because I wasn't able to open that door up or put myself in a dangerous situation. I felt like it was easier for me to support directors and help them go there. But then when it was about me doing it for myself, that was a huge challenge. And then when I was offered to do it, at first I was like, no. And then I realized, oh, okay, there will never be a better opportunity than on this show.
Yeah. And it sounds like you have a director that's very supportive of that for you too. So that's fantastic to have.
100%. Like, he believed in me more than I believed in myself. So.
Yeah.
I have a somewhat related viewer question from Finton. What is your experience of having become a producer on the second season of Severance? It seems unprecedented for a DOP to be given a producer credit, and it feels like a unique reward for being a consistent creative force across the whole first season. Does the title of producer come with a unique level of ownership? Are there any responsibilities involved, or is it more of a formality that acknowledges the impact of your work on season 1 equally to season 2?
I mean, definitely the last thing that you just said. I don't know that it's not a formality. Definitely not, because it's not normal. But I give so much to my work, and I'm the type of person who really wants to deliver and make sure that things come out at a specific level. And that means I have to be involved in more things that are not necessarily just cinematography conversations. I get involved in scheduling. I get involved in production meetings that you usually wouldn't have the cinematographer involved. My opinion is asked a lot. And just because I was a very integral part of season 1, coming back for season 2 wasn't, I didn't necessarily want to come back for season 2. For me, I love world building and creating new things. So it was a way of saying, like, okay, we are acknowledging your work on this show, the importance of your work. And I think it's important, especially like as a below the line person, to, kind of step up in that role when you can. And in terms of directing, I think that that's important when you want, in television, people don't always understand like the structure of television and how it works. You'll have showrunners and writers who usually have a huge importance on television shows. And then directors will come in, do an episode, do 2 weeks of editing, and then they're gone. Episode 7, you watch it and you can tell it feels a little different, but it lives within the world of Severance, and it was possible because of what Severance is. That's why it's also special, and because it can stand out, because it has that backbone. But it kind of needed that extra little supervision and understanding, just because it was shot and made in a kind of a different way. So being a producer on that allowed me to stay, and be a part of the whole process of that episode.
Kind of tied directly to that, actually. And you mentioned a future directing project coming up. So a little while ago, we had Matthew Lloyd, another Canadian cinematographer, on the show. And he came from doing a Spider-Man movie to his follow-up project was shot on 16 millimeter on location in multiple countries when he made Origin. So I wonder, because Severance does have such a distinctive style, like, is your upcoming directorial project kind of a palette cleanser? Is it a step in completely a different direction tonally? You don't have to say much, but I'm just curious. Is this going to be unexpected?
Talk about those things. It's totally different. Completely different.
Cool.
I'm kind of like wanting to reappropriate the 90s thriller.
Okay.
So 90s erotic thriller, but
Jordan is all about this right now.
I am. Yes,
legitimate emotions.
I'm in. Bring them back.
I mean, those were good movies, but I don't know. But then we need to revamp it a little bit. I'm very excited about it. It's it's very dark. It's gonna be really different. I think people will recognize certain things about me in it for sure, but it's I don't see transitions in it. It's a little more grounded.
Just one.
Oh,
One like super cool, mind-blowing transition.
Every time I say I won't do something, I do it. So I really have to stop with that. I'm trying, but.
We have just a little bit more time. If Jordan, you wanted to hit another one of your questions in here quickly.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, one thing I definitely wanted to touch on is like the Quebec film industry is kind of a huge deal in Europe, but not really as well known even like for, us Western Canadian bumpkins over here, and especially in the States. And I used to feel kind of checked in with it, but I'm just curious, in the last decade, like what are a couple things I need to check out, like as a refresher coming out of there?
I think you should probably watch Monia Chokri's film. She did this film that was at Cannes. I can't remember if it was last year or the year before. Simple comme Sylvain. Simple. I don't know what the title's in English. I'm so sorry. Also,
the great thing is this is recorded, so I can jump back and catch that.
So also really want to highlight Chloé Robichaud's latest films, Deux Femmes en Or, which was at Sundance, and they won, I think, the award for writing. She's the person I made my first feature with as a cinematographer, and her movie went to Cannes. It was in Un Certain Regard. I think those two are really cool. I'm trying to think which other one you could really get into right now. I mean, there's a lot of really cool up-and-coming filmmakers that I'm following. Mm-hmm. Matthew Rankin's film, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on it. I'm blanking on the title. Langue universelle. I know all the titles in French, but I don't know that.
That's perfect.
By Matthew
that's actually the names of the movies, so that's fine.
But like he's an extraordinary filmmaker. Like his crafting is really unusual and interesting. I feel like just those three, you would have something like really interesting to look at.
Cool. And one 90s erotic thriller I missed.
Well, that's coming up. That's not like or one that you missed. That's like
one I probably missed.
Single white female.
Oh, scene. Love.
So I know we're at time here, but I wanted to squeeze one more in if that's okay. And it's a question that I think a lot of people have on their minds. This one is from a reader. His name is Harman, and he says, I'm going to be starting university next month. I got selected to the only film studies course in my country, and I'm going to main in cinematography. I love your work with Severance, and Chikai Bardo is my favorite episode. Do you have any advice for someone like me, a complete beginner?
It's so cheesy, but it's just like believe in yourself, honestly. I think if you really feel within you that you're meant to work in the film industry, you can make it happen. You just have to not give up. You have to work really hard. It's undeniable how hard we work in this industry, and there are usually some sacrifices that you have to make, so I think it's just weighing those things. And if you're ready to make the sacrifices, it's because you're going to make it happen. But there is like a dark period, where you can either move through something and do other jobs that are not necessarily like the thing you ultimately want to do, or you can, and that might take more time, or you can go through this dark period where you don't know. And you just kind of like do those projects for no money. Like those are like the two ways. You have to just see where your comfort level is.
All right.
Very cool.
Well, thank you very much. Really appreciate you coming on and chatting with us for a little bit. For those listening, we're going to have additional questions answered by Jessica Lee in a written article that we'll publish later this week. So the ones that we didn't get to, of which there are many, we will hopefully get to those in that. So we appreciate you taking so much time to chat with this entire team. Jessica Lee, it was really nice to see you.
It's my pleasure. It's fun to talk with three people.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jessica Lee.
Guys, when we started doing this podcast, I was just like, I don't know, maybe it'll be, it's going to be part of what I do. But I didn't know I was going to like talk to cool, awesome people all the time. That's the best perk of having this dumb show. This is amazing. Wasn't that great?
Wow.
This dumb
show.
Well, we appreciate people actually watching this dumb show because that's what allows us to get cool guests. So we appreciate it.
Sorry, everybody.
That was... I think we could easily have talked to her for another hour. We had
so many more.
Jessica Lee was great.
Questions. Yeah,
Jessica Lee was
really
great. Nice. Jordan has now prostrated himself a substantial amount, so I think we can move on. What have you guys been up to? What have you been doing?
Well, so I got an email last Friday. I think it was on Friday. Yeah, it was on Friday from Blue Moon Camera and Machine. Third mention. That told me that, hey, we got 20 rolls of Provia. First come, first serve.
You are an addict. I knew it.
So I went in there and I bought 5 rolls of Provia at, I think it was $35.36 a roll.
Oh my God.
And I now have those in my freezer. That's what I've been up to. Oh, and my Sigma Mark 1 showed up.
Yes.
So, do you want me to go get it?
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, go get it.
All right,
Go get it.
I know we touched on this in the pod, like his sinister, was it sinister? I don't know. His arrangement with Gordon Lang. I don't know if that's how he actually got it. We were in Mexico and I was just thrilled to see a social media post of Jaron. Like, here it is. It's a Sigma Mark 1. And I know Go ahead, Chris.
Pining over the importance of context in this situation. When we were in the Sigma factory, they have a little museum there in Japan in Fukushima, and they had this Sigma Mark 1 camera, and I'd not seen it before. I was new to that. And then Jaron was like, what is that gorgeous thing? And I'm like, I don't know. And then the person there was like, well, it's actually one of our first SLRs we've ever made. And look at it. It's beautiful. And then, Jaron started searching, found one in Europe, and asked our good friend Gordon Lang if he could acquire it, which he eventually did. And now, there you go. Lo and behold, Jaron holds this beautiful camera.
So was this camera langed? Was it fully langed? Was it caressed by?
Did he lang all over
Gordon
it?
Lang?
He did touch it, but he didn't get a chance to shoot. Our original plan was he was going to shoot a Dinobytes episode about it, and then I was going to provide like hands-on shooting experience, and he could publish it on his channel. But he ran out of time, so it's now all on me. I have confirmed the light meter works. It's great. This is a screw mount system. M30. What is
M42.
M42. Thank you. M42 screw mount.
You could put the original Angenieux S21 on there if you wanted to. You know what I mean? That'd be hot.
But instead, I have a Pentax Super Takamar here, which was recommended to me by Blue Moon Camera and Machine, fourth mention. And it is really good size here. I'm excited to shoot with it. I think I'm going to shoot a mixture of Ilford and Kodak on here. Tri-X? Is that the black and white one? I don't know.
Oh, the best. The best.
Yeah. So
and an intervention is coming shortly where we tie Jaron up and we throw him in a van and we drive him out to a place and we beat the analog out of him. We'll see. I've created a monster. I'm going to make an episode about this.
So I have a lot of history about this camera. As a preview to that, there were only about 2,000 of these made. They aren't expensive if you can find them, but the if you can find them is the key. They are rare.
I'm glad
and this one's in better condition than the one in the Sigma factory.
I bet it's a tank. I bet it can take a beating and keep on going. So yeah,
I'm very excited to shoot with it.
One thing people might not know is when we do executive interviews, sometimes Jaron will shoot a film and digital version of it. So next time we see Kazuto-san, I want you to get a shot on the SD1 with that. And the bragging rights would be off the charts in that moment. You'd have a better crack at that adoption you've been striving for.
Yeah.
Well, I will definitely be using. I just love how this camera feels because it has Nikon F energy, but it's completely different handling. It's just nice. I'm really stoked to start shooting with this, so I'm going to do that starting this week actually. What have you guys been up to?
What have we been up to? Well, we should do this quickly because we got a lot of your questions to answer. But Jordan, we've been on vacation, haven't we?
We did. We went together. I did something I have not done since starting on YouTube. I took a vacation and did not bring a laptop. I didn't edit nothing for a week. It was crazy. It was borderline
I shot sample galleries.
Yeah. And I stopped checking YouTube Studio by like day 3 because at this point it's just like a muscle memory response is like, oh, I'm riding an elevator. I need to see how views and comments are going right now. And I was able to let that go after a number of days. So I'm very excited about that. I did shoot the Canon V1 and actually had some fun with it. So shortly after this, we will have a review on that coming out. And I did enjoy that. That was still fun for me. So yeah. Okay. What about you, Chris?
Little bit of work, just a little bit. But yes, it was a great vacation. All righty.
That's what he's been doing. Cool. All right. So now that we know what everyone's been up to and why we didn't have an episode last week, let's get to some tech support. We have just a few here. I knew that we were going to have not a ton of time because of the interview and all the news we had to get through, but we'll do our best. We have a start off here with an email from Mike. I have a question for Chris. He is always talking about how beautiful a camera is, and I've never heard him say a camera is ugly. So I would like to know what cameras, if any, he thinks are ugly. And I don't mean Holgas, Instamatics, disposable cameras, and the like. For me, a great deal of the beauty of a camera is in the engineering. For example, I think the Hasselblad V cameras are incredibly beautiful, but a lot of it is how well engineered they are. I'm going to take a mental guess on what you might say, Chris, but...
Well, first, let's. I appreciate Mike's question. It is factually incorrect. I have actually stated multiple times many cameras are ugly. And you guys have your thing. And so the first one that I have publicly said quite a bit, I think Panasonic make very ugly cameras as far as their SLRs. And again, when I say ugly, I would put Sony in the same box, and that they just don't have any sort of like sexy cachet to them, but they're very functional tools. So Alpha Series bodies, Panasonic
That's where
bodies.
I wanted to go. A77, ugliest camera ever made.
Oh, A7. Their SLRs are pretty ugly, but they're utilitarian, right? For sure. So I think a lot of cameras are ugly. Actually, Mike mentions the Hasselblad V cameras. I don't think they're very pretty at all, but they are cool in a certain Luftwaffe air recon camera kind of way, but I don't find them that beautiful visually, but some of the cameras are gorgeous. So it's eye of the beholder stuff. But Sigma as well.
What about the one that's holding a sea urchin tightly?
The Quattros, the older, the Merrills were fine, but I find them to be odd, strange cameras. I don't find them aesthetically beautiful. The BF is, of course, quite pretty. I will give that to them. The BF is quite pretty.
I would say 50% of all Pentax point and shoots are some of the most hideous designs I've ever seen. And the other half, pretty good looking. So it was a real roll of the dice with those ones.
Yeah. I like that they made some of their DSLRs to look like just fantastic, beastly DSLRs, and others to look like
what's the
running
K
shoes.
series with the LEDs all over it? That KS2 might be the ugliest camera of all time.
KS2. The KO1 was hideous garbage.
If someone strapped Jaren's back wall to a DSLR body, it was the KS2.
Yeah. Mark, don't get Mark Newsom to ever make a camera again. That was terrible. It was just hideous.
Oh, that's KO1. That thing's heinous.
Before we get to the
KO1.
next question, I realized that I was remiss and I didn't do this. That sounds so good. That's a good chunk. Like it. All right, so we're going to listen to a speak pipe now from Megan.
Hi, everyone. It's Megan from Richmond, Virginia. Love your podcast as always. I have a couple of random questions. One is with the higher megapixel counts going crazy and the different size sensors, would it make more sense for companies to put in their specifications like megapixel per square centimeter, inch, nanometer, whatever, as a better indication of their potential for detail? And my second random question is, with all the fun with film these days, do you think any of the companies would go back to making cameras sort of in pieces and you could change out the digital back for a film back as desired? And would anybody want to buy that? Okay, thanks guys. Take care.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for that, Megan. We appreciate it. So there is, to answer the first question, there is kind of an indicator of megapixel count versus sensor size, and that's given by pixel pitch. So pixel pitch kind of gives you an idea of the density of the pixels. It's not necessarily saying specifically what the size of the pixels are, but it does give you an idea of the density. The idea being that, lower density, larger pixels might be in some way like collecting more light and stuff like that. Honestly, I feel like nowadays with sensors, when we talk about modern sensors, megapixel has become an easier way to just do it. Higher megapixels do denote more detail and resolution if you want to enlarge things or crop things. And honestly, we're kind of getting away from the idea where higher megapixel cameras are worse in low light. That's kind of something that happened way back in the day. It's not so much a case right now because noise has gotten so good and dynamic range has gotten so good, even on high resolution sensors, that having the extra resolution actually, although you might get more noise, the noise is smaller when you look at it, so it kind of cancels out. But anyways, there are indications for that. Pixel pitch would be that.
I think it's nice that we're seeing where it's really difficult is small sensors to measure that. And I do think it's nice some smartphone manufacturers are actually giving you the pixel pitch when they talk about a camera system. I just wish they'd also give you the actual sensor size and lens aperture while they're doing that as well. So it seems like it's always one or the other when they're talking about it. But yeah, I think for larger sensors, it's pretty easy to deduce what you're going to get there. There's going to be an easy benchmark. It's when we get to those type 1 over blank sensors with however many megapixels, it's really difficult to gauge what the low light performance and dynamic range will be. So
and honestly, smartphones too. Yeah, smartphones too. Same difference. Yeah. To answer your second question, do I think companies would ever go back to making interchangeable like film back into your digital camera? No, I don't think so, Megan. Like, it'd be a cool idea, but engineering wise, it's very difficult, and it would be insanely expensive. So, I think just given that there are so many film cameras on the market used, that's still going to be where people want to go. I think people desire that, to be honest. I don't know that if you made a modern film camera, would people buy into it? That's hard to say. But, Pentax 17 is an example of a company trying to do it. That was a really ballsy risk. I don't know, though, if it's necessarily paying off for them in a way where they're like, oh, we're going to do that again. There's always rumors, will Fujifilm make a film camera and stuff? But yeah, one where you have a mix of being able to go back and forth between the two, I don't think so. But there are some Kickstarters and there are some interesting sort of, I don't know, for lack of a better term, cottage industry where they're making digital backs that go onto film cameras. And that might be neat because then you can like relive your days. So there's like the I'm film backs and stuff like that do that. That might be something you might want to look into, where you actually make a film camera into a digital camera. But again, they tend to be a little bit large and bulky, but that's getting better and better every day.
Okay. The next one is a speak pipe from Michael.
Hey fellas, Michael in Vancouver here. I currently have a Fujifilm GFX 100S with 3 lenses, and man, it's wonderful, but it's so heavy. I did go out a few times with 2 of the 3 lenses, but to haul that thing around with 3 lenses, forget it. And they're primes, 23, 45, and 80. Now, Fujifilm's about to announce their GFX 100 RF, a fixed lens medium format camera. The lens being 35 millimeter f4, so that's in full frame equivalent. That's about a 28 3.2. And I'm thinking, okay, 100 megapixel sensor, 28 millimeters. I could crop into 35 to 50 to I don't know what, maybe 60, and still have pretty good resolution. Down to 20 megapixel resolution, 26, whatever. What are your thoughts? What do you say?
So yeah, that does date this a little bit because you've clearly used it already. But specific to his question, now that you've had time to think about it some more, do you think that the GFX 100 RF does a good job solving the problem that he's having? Because it's just cropping.
Yeah, exactly. Like it is just cropping. And I mean, that was a big part of our review was the validity of, is a 100 megapixel sensor enough to then allow the crop ability and still get good results? And I think the answer is yes. I mean, that was one of the things that kind of really fascinated me about the 100 RF and made me enjoy that process was feeling comfortable enough that I can crop to different focal lengths, still get a very usable image. But are you getting the maximum potential of the camera? Absolutely not, right? And there's still a lot of merit to having an interchangeable lens system with the GFX line where you do get different focal lengths and you do get brighter apertures. I mean, the 100 RF is designed to be an interesting stylistic choice, making use of that high megapixel sensor, but on purpose giving up a lot of it in order to have the flexibility that's inherent in cropping. And I think it is a successful thing. Leica does that a lot with their Q cameras as well. And their latest, the 60 megapixel version, that's also kind of the benefit of that is having the ability to crop. So it's a stylistic choice, but if you want maximum image quality, that's not the choice for you.
Well, I think that sensor is so interesting because we can see versions of it in different formats. So it's really easy to visualize if that's going to be enough for you. Like, do you want a 28 millimeter, 100 megapixel? Is that enough for you? Absolutely. Is a 35 megapixel on the Sony 60 megapixel sensor that's very common? Is that enough for you? Because that's exactly what you're getting.
Yeah.
On the 26 megapixel Sony sensors, is a 50 millimeter equivalent enough for you? So it's easy to gauge. I think sometimes people need to put it in that perspective to really visualize like how functional that cropping is going to be for them.
Yeah.
All right, we got time for one more question. This one's pretty quick. Let's listen to Daniel.
Hi, Chris. Hi, Jordan. Daniel here from Hungary. With the recent popularity of the Leica Q2 and Q3 and also the Fujifilm 18 millimeter, I want to ask your opinion. Why doesn't Sony release a 28 millimeter full frame lens? Love to hear your opinions. Thank you.
Yeah, why doesn't someone release a 28 millimeter lens?
We've complained about the lack of 28. I mean, Sony did. It was just 12 years ago. They do make a 28 millimeter f2. It was one of the first lenses for E-mount, and no one's making 28s. What's going on, Chris?
I don't know, but I would still say that a 10-year-old 28 millimeter lens is better than any modern 35 millimeter lens. So, buy it anyways. But yeah, we should see more 28 mils. It feels like the focal length that everybody's forgotten, and I don't know why. I love using a 28 as like a general walk around lens. I think the fact though is a 24 is still more versatile. And so it makes sense that people focus on that. And as much as I love 28s, if I had to pick, I would probably go with the 24 instead.
So
I'm part of the problem.
It's a bit of a spoiler, but I'm working on a review of a 28 millimeter lens right now from ThaiPoc.
Ooh.
And you were there for that, Chris. And like my takeaway at the end of that was like, I have this and I have a 50 and I have been shooting 35. I just found myself not really gravitating to the 28 that much.
Interesting.
I like 28. I want to like 28 more. And like, I don't know, man. This is a 28 on the Sigma here. This is a 28 millimeter 3.5. So like, I'm gonna shoot 28 because it's literally screwed onto this camera.
28's
banged
the
into my mic
best.
there. So I'd like
best.
to learn to. I think maybe I just didn't vibe with that 28. Maybe I'll like this one better. So we'll see. But I think that's the thing. I think a lot of manufacturers are just like, if we have a 24 and a 35, why do we need a 28? The answer is because people want it. So I would like to see more of that.
I'm going way back here, but I remember when Zeiss launched their CP series of cinema lenses, they were like, you can have one to demo at the store. And I was like, oh, 28, 28, 28. That was always like, if I have to have one focal length, that's the one I would love to have, which is probably part of why I love the Leica Q3 and stuff like that. Why I thought that focal length on the GFX 100 RF was so nice. So yeah, I'm all team 28 millimeter. Not ambivalent at all. I want more.
Yeah, I do too.
All right. We're going to end it with the feel-good story of the week, and this one made me laugh heartily. AI usually is just a bummer for the most part, but this one is hilarious. So somebody found out over the weekend that Google's AI will just hallucinate a meaning to any idiom that you make up and give it. So like, for example, there's one here that someone said, what does under the tortilla fortress mean? And Google was like, it's a phrase that can be interpreted a few ways, but it generally implies a sense of being sheltered or protected. That is complete nonsense. Another one is stick it to the diddly time. That is what Google thinks is a slang expression meaning to resist authority or a system. I sent you guys a couple that I just made up that were like photography related that I thought were funny. So the one that I put in there was reel it like a fish, not film. And Google's AI was like, oh yeah, that means to successfully obtain or achieve something after a period of effort or strategy. Man.
This is probably the closest indication that AI is more human than we think, because I know a lot of people who, would far prefer to save face and pretend that they know and make up some sort of stupid answer for something than to just straight out be like, unfortunately, I've never heard of that. I don't know. I'm sorry. I can't contribute. Most people be like, oh yeah, I've heard of that. That's where blah, 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 blah. So
everyone
AI
needs a little turpentine from time to time, Chris.
Yeah,
and that just means you should occasionally be faced with the difficulty.
Yeah, there you go. Don't look the pretzel man in the eyes, dude. You know what I mean? Like,
I actually gave it, don't look an SD card in the tines. And it's like, that means that's a variant of don't look a gift horse in the mouth. It just like said that with such confidence that is a known thing to say.
Google would be the most annoying person at the house party. That's what they are.
Yeah, 100%. We've trained AI off of our own language and our own reactions to be just dumb as hell. So that says something about the human condition. Great job, everybody. Yeah, great job.
One for the toenail.
The mirror. It is the mirror
shoe.
with which we now view ourselves. Oh my God.
Some of these ones, some of the ones that these people made up to try and get AI to answer them are very funny. And while I was doing this, by the way, and I wasn't the only one who noticed it, the Google AI would sometimes be like, no, we're not doing this. We're not like Google was on to us. Like they realized we had caught its AI making up lies and made it stop answering. I don't know if this still works today, but you should try it. It's very funny.
I tried it yesterday and
it
did not. No, it didn't work actually. So I was going to ask if I need to go another. So they may have.
They're on to us.
If you had some good ones in that window where it was still available, please post them in the comments because I was really enjoying that. Yeah.
It is just like the guy in the corner who eventually realizes, wait, you guys are making fun of me, aren't you? And then you're like, well, I'm not playing that game anymore. So look at that. More human than ever. I'm telling you. It's going to, take over.
I tried don't light until the gaffer sneezes and nope, nothing.
Oh, that's a shame. I wish we would have tried that when I first messaged it to you over the weekend. All right. So this week, some stuff people can look forward to. We got that Canon V1 review coming. Also, we're going to try and get a Yashica City 100 review done. We're going to do our best for that. People, are you ready for some Yashica point and shoot action? Find it next time. But we'll be back at our regular podcasting time next week. No issues so far on the board. So we'll see you then. Thanks for joining us. Thanks again to Jessica Lee for joining us. Thanks to Insta360 for sponsoring this episode. See you later.
Bye. See you guys soon. Bye.